So here's a story that seems like a huge deal to me, and it's getting no coverage. When I prep for this show, I go to minimum a dozen websites, probably between a dozen and 20 different websites, news sites. And I saw one article on this. One. Have I seen anything on cable news? No. They're too busy talking about Omarosa. I wish I was kidding. I'm not. And the other thing that they're talking nonstop about is Rudy Giuliani going on the Sunday shows and being a jackass and basically saying, he said, quote, "Truth isn't truth." The context of him saying it was like, oh, basically we don't know who's telling the truth, Trump or his detractors from in his administration. But media is taking that quote and they're throwing it everywhere and they're going, oh, Rudy Giuliani's so stupid. He doesn't even think truth is truth. It's just fodder. It's catnip for idiots. That's what's happening on mainstream media now. So here's the real story, which is getting no coverage, and it's fucking infuriating. U.S. forces to stay in Iraq as long as needed. U.S. forces will stay in Iraq, quote, as long as needed to help stabilize regions previously controlled by the Islamic State. A spokesman for the U.S.-led international coalition fighting the militants said on Sunday, "We'll keep troops there as long as we think they're needed. The main reason after ISIS is defeated militarily is the stabilization efforts, and we still need to be there for that. So that's one of the reasons we'll maintain a presence," Colonel Sean Ryan told a news conference in Abu Dhabi. Coalition forces are this is them saying, oh, leave? We're not leaving. That's not a thing that's going to happen. We're going to stay there as long as needed. And what's as long as needed? Well, as long as terrorists exist. And actually, even after, if we were to theoretically get rid of all the terrorists, well, we're still going to stay there for, quote, stabilization. So let me get this right. If there are a lot of terrorists there, well, we have to stay to fight the terrorists, obviously. And if there are no terrorists there, well, we have to stay to stabilize the region. Right? So it seems like a situation where your answer is the same no matter what. And shocker, the answer is always staying there. Permanent occupation of a country that didn't attack us, that we invaded based on lies. This story seems like a giant deal to me. We're paying for this. It's our tax money. We're funding a permanent occupation of a country that didn't attack us. That's what we're doing. You know how much the war in Iraq is supposed to cost when you take everything together? So not just now, but including this permanent occupation until the year 2053. They calculated these numbers. A great Business Insider article from a few years ago where they said, let's extrapolate here and see what the total cost is going to end up being. $7 trillion. $7 trillion. With a T. So Flint, Michigan doesn't have clean water. Our infrastructure, according to a report that's released by the Society of Civil Engineers, gets a grade of D+. Half of workers in this country make $30,000 a year or less. We have 30 million people without health coverage. We have a laundry list of horrendous problems. We have about 50 or 60,000 homeless veterans in this country. We have hundreds of thousands of homeless Americans in this country. Well, obviously they're in this country if they're Americans. But we have $7 trillion to just permanently occupy a country that didn't attack us. And by the way, the thing that I think drives me most crazy is there used to be a time when the media would demand some answers and be like, okay, so we're at this war. Please define victory and tell me when we can get out. Now, nobody even bothers to ask. Like, hey, what would victory mean? So what would be the conclusion where you say, oh, we're going to wrap it up and come home? Now that's not even a thing. Like, nobody brings it up, ever. Nobody says, oh, hey, hold on now. You sold us. They used to tell us when they started the war, oh, we'll be in and out real quick. Oh, we'll be greeted as liberators, and they'll be dancing in the square and thanking the Americans, and then obviously, the war will pay for itself. And I mean, obviously what we're doing is we have to go in because we got to get Saddam Hussein, because Saddam Hussein was responsible for 9/11. Oh, right, that was total bullshit. So they tell us we're getting into Iraq because Saddam was responsible for 9/11. Well, that wasn't true. We learned that wasn't true, over a decade ago? And then what happened? They just moved the goalposts. They're like, oh yeah, sure, we started a war, and this was our basis, saying that Saddam did 9/11. Well, now we know that's not true, so now we're going to say he has weapons of mass destruction. Whoa, you just switched you said he was responsible for 9/11, and that was the reason. Now you switch he has weapons of mass destruction. And that's not, like, saying that does not mean, it does not logically follow from that, oh, Nebraska is at risk, he's about to launch against us. That's not what that means. So that he has the weapons, that doesn't necessitate, we got immediately send ground troops and invade. That doesn't mean that. But the media went along with that part. Oh, if he has weapons of mass destruction, obviously we have to go. And then when we learned that one was bullshit, what did they move the goalposts to? What was the final position? He's a bad guy. Oh, really? That's cute, because we back 73% of the world's dictators. So the argument of he's a meanie dictator doesn't really resonate. What are we going to topple 73% of the countries in the world? We back 73% of the world's dictatorship. So are we going to back however many dictators there are? But are we going to topple the ones that we back? No, we're not going to do that. So, and Saddam is dead. Even if you were to buy that last argument, which you shouldn't, he's dead. He's dead and gone. And they just keep moving the goalposts. Oh, did we say that Saddam, that it's him and he's the problem, and then when he's gone, we can leave? Oh, see, what we meant was, what had happened was, what we're going to do is, we're going to stay there, and now we're going to say that we need to go after ISIS and Al-Qaeda in the region. Well, they weren't there before we invaded. We invaded and now they're there. Seems like a pretty ineffective thing to do, to continue doing the thing that was the problem in the first place. But then I told you, now they move the goalpost. Finally, it's the last step, and the last step is, oh no, even if there are no terrorists there, we obviously need to stay to stabilize the region. So now they've made it a non-falsifiable claim. No matter what evidence comes in, they use that to back up their position of, that's why we're staying. Oh, there are terrorists there, that's why we're staying. Oh, there aren't terrorists there, that's why we're staying. Doesn't matter. That's the answer. Oh, we're going to stay, no matter what. So you and I are blowing our tax money over there as our country crumbles. Never mind the U.S. deaths there, which is horrific and abysmal, and you destroyed families for no reason. Never mind the hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians that died in Iraq. So it's illegal. War crimes were committed, and we're just casually like, oh yeah, we're going to stay there. And then you call people conspiracy theorists if they bring up, hey, hold on. You do know oil production shot through the roof after we invaded and took over territory, right? And in Afghanistan, because people go, oh, there's no oil in Afghanistan, so what would the reason be for Afghanistan then? They have trillions of dollars worth of mineral wealth in Afghanistan. Never mind the opium. So, am I saying that's the only reason? No, I'm not saying that's the only reason. But here's what I know for damn sure. The reasons they give are total bullshit, because they just keep moving the goalposts. So, we now are, this country, we have 900 military bases around the world. That's a real number, 900. It costs $100 billion a year just to maintain those military bases. The last two presidents, Obama and now Trump, both ran on, oh, we got to get out of Iraq. Obviously, what the fuck are we doing there? Let's go, let's leave. Both of them ran on that, and we're still there. Something really fucked up is going on, man. And it doesn't even make news. Our news media doesn't even cover it. when the U.S. says, yeah, we're going to stay there permanently, indefinitely. So Lindsey Graham's neocon position, which he expressed back when he ran for president, by the way, LOL, he ran for president, he said in an interview, I think it was with CNBC, he was asked, oh, so when do we leave Iraq? He says, you don't leave, you just stay there. Now that is the position that we're actually abiding by, and nobody's talking about it. Do a little study here. Do your own investigation. Go turn on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Watch it as much as you can for, like a month. And then come back and tell me how many times they mention any of our wars in that time frame. And the hilarious thing is people will mock and ridicule state media. Like they do this, RT, fucking RT. It's a they're puppets of the Russian government. They're always doing the bidding of the Russian government. They're funded by them. So obviously they're going to do that. Corporate media serves U.S. power if they refuse to critically report on the worst aspects of what they're doing. And what do you think's happening here? They're not covering the fact that we're still bombing 8 different countries and we have a full-scale invasion happening in at least 2. They don't talk about it. So exactly what the state powers want, that's exactly what the corporate media is doing. And this all goes back to Noam Chomsky's manufacturing consent. Read manufacturing consent. Because the argument there is corporate media is just as subservient, if not more subservient, to U.S. power than state media is to respective states around the world. So it might even be the case that corporate media is more beholden to the U.S. government, even though they're, in theory, independent because they're corporate. So it's just absolutely devastating, and you guys have to come here in order to get your news about the war, which should be like thing number 1 the mainstream media talks about, but they won't. And oh yeah, by the way, they will overwhelmingly likely demonetize this video, and they might even put an age restriction thing on it. I covered the thing that happened in Yemen recently with the kids being slaughtered on a bus. And not only did they demonetize it, they also put age restriction on it. Because, the news about what's happening in the world, educating the American people about the facts of reality, that's sensitive. And obviously, if you do that, there's no rewards for that. We can't allow you to profit off of giving people facts and information. No, we'd much rather disincentivize anybody from talking about war crimes that the U.S. partakes in. So make it so nobody does it. And then corporate media won't tell you about it, independent media won't tell you about it, and nobody will know what's actually going on around the world. So this is the sad fact of reality. Now, I'm the type of person, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to cover this regardless because it needs to be covered. It's incredibly important. We're staying in Iraq indefinitely and nobody's fucking talking about it. They just said it. Like, oh yeah, we're just going to stabilize the region, not leaving. That's insanity. Everybody should be out in the street protesting and saying, no, we're going to stop this and we're going to stop it right now. Bring the troops home. Bring them home. But they're going to keep trying to disincentivize independent media from talking about it. And, but at least it's good that we know the left is united against the idea that social media companies, giant social media companies, Silicon Valley billionaire oligarchs, at least we know the left is united against the idea that those people should be able to filter and censor your news. Oh, that's right. That's not happening. That's the opposite of what's happening. So be careful what you wish for, because clearly this stuff is going to be flipped back on us, and we're the ones who are talking about the most important stuff. So if you support this show and you support learning about instances like this, please consider a donation to patreon.com/seculartalk. If you just throw $2 a month, consider it a tip for doing what we do here. Because here's what's for damn sure. I will never, ever shut up talking about the real issues.